Chapter 8 of Gypsy's book, My Time to Stand. Well, the Dan chapter. The great Dan chapter. Gypsy, you could tell she was in love with this man. I don't know why. After reading this chapter, I would not love this man at all. I would just be, what the fuck? What in the actual fuck? So she starts off the chapter mentioning that her age is 19 and she was just destined to get a man. She was hell-bent on getting a man. She said that she had started a secret Facebook page and she would go to cosplay conventions and she would meet people there and then she would add them onto that Facebook page. So that means that all these guys that were pictured with her at these cosplays, like in these Star Wars outfits and everything, had to know a little bit about Gypsy. They had to have. She had received a Facebook message from Dan, and this is where things start. Dan introduces himself as the gentleman that he is. He tells her, hey, I was the drunk guy that bumped into your wheelchair at the convention. He was in his 30s, but he thought that she was 15. Already, once again, talking to these dudes who are fascinated with children. She goes on and says that she had spent months talking to Dan. She tells Dan, you are the first person to know that I can actually walk, yet we hear later on that she tells Nick the same exact thing. She makes an excuse for herself and she says that, granted, yes, I did talk to Dan, but I was messed up the entire time I talked to him, and that she had a burner phone that she would talk to him from, one that her mother had owned. And my main question in regards to all of this is, if she was so high on life the entire time, and she was going to see all these doctors all the time, when they were doing lab work on her, would they have not seen that she had painkillers in her body? Would that not have shown up on the lab work? She goes on and tells Dan her real age, so she tells him that she had realized how old she really was, that she had found like medical records and found like her social security card and all this, even though we know that she already knew this at this point. And she tells him that she is actually 19 years old. She's not a 15-year-old. She knew at this point, since she knew her real age, that she could leave at any point, and she even states that in the book. She states that she knew at that age it opened up opportunities that she could leave and have a family with a married man, because Dan was married. Move, etc. So that statement alone discredits the victim mentality of everything. If she knew that she could leave and take off because she was of age, she knew that there wasn't really anything that her mother could do, then why didn't she? Her mother could not stop her. She even states that in the book. You might as well not even read the rest of the book, because this right alone, it just ends at this point. It ends her being the victim. Why is this not being brought back up in court? Why? Dan, the sensible man that he is, tells her, well, Gypsy, since you know all this, there's nothing stopping you. You could leave at any point. You are an adult. You do not have to stay in that situation. You can go. While on one of these trips, Gypsy is caught talking to Dan, and her mother picks up the phone, answers the phone, asks who it is, and Dan is just like, I guess, silent, and she just hangs up on him. She then looks at Gypsy, doesn't say anything. He told her to get in the van, or get into her chair and in the van. Her mother goes in and calls her a bunch of names, whores, stuff like that, and then starts to vigorously beat her legs. Her mother goes to the phone and reads the text messages that she had between her and Dan, and then contacts Dan. Told Dan, hey, my daughter's only 15, don't talk to her. Gypsy doesn't really pay attention to this, and she starts talking to Dan a couple months later. Dan tells her, hey Gypsy, I have a farm in Arkansas. We could just go there and live. You don't have to stay in the situation that you are in. You can leave at any point. You can come stay with me. I have my own farm. Which, you know, how she stated that Nick had brought up the fact that they could take Dee Dee's body to a farm. Is this the farm? Is this the farm? Did Dan have pigs? We need to know. We need to know, Dan. You need to come forward and speak after this book, because this is not painting you in a good light at all. We need to hear it. Gypsy tells Dan that, hey, I don't have cancer. I don't have any of these illnesses. And, which is weird because, like we've heard, Gypsy had stated multiple times, multiple interviews, even in her prison tapes and everything else, and in court, that she thought that she had cancer the entire time. That she was sick. That she couldn't leave. That her teeth was messed up from all this. So what the hell? What is it? I'm so confused. This is probably the most messed up chapter so far. Gypsy has to tell us that she's developing her breasts. 2 o'clock on Good Morning, Dan messages Gypsy, hey Gypsy, I've been beat up. I'm in the hospital. Can you come be with me? I don't really have anyone here. She packs a bag, and in this bag she takes a baby bottle, a Stitch movie, and lingerie that she has stolen. And she goes to him. She gets up and she goes to him. Gypsy, if you were that incompetent on leaving your mother, how in the hell did you just get up and leave? If you've never done this before in your life, how were you able to do this? Because you were in Springfield and you left and went to the hospital. You walked. She walked to the hospital, guys. But she wasn't allowed to walk. How did you have that much of a muscle tone from being forced in a wheelchair the entire time to get up and walk that far to this man? I guess if it has a penis, she's willing. She is more than willing and strong enough and capable to get there. She wrote her mother a letter, and she told her mother that she knew everything. She knew her age. She knew she didn't suffer from these illnesses. She gets to the hospital. The cousin picks them both up and takes them to the friend's house that Dan is crashing at. When she gets to the house, of course, the house is not fitting her reality, what she wanted or what she was expecting. She's complaining about bugs, and she's complaining about smoke paraphernalia being laying around the house. Nothing makes her happy. I mean, if I was that abused and I finally got a way out, I don't think I would really be complaining about a mattress on the floor or bugs. I would be ecstatic to have got out of that situation. Dan told her to lay with him. Of course, we know what really happened, and the entire time she's covering her tube because she doesn't want him to look at it and find her to be disgusting. Or starved, as she put it, because she's, like, again, she said she couldn't eat. Like, previous chapter, she was cooking stuff for herself to eat. She asked Dan, hey, when are we leaving? When are we getting out of this place? And he said he couldn't leave the state because he is on parole. She's shocked. Dan reassures her, says, hey, when I can, I will get a job. I will take care of us. Sounds familiar to a couple of other guys, but Dan's friend knocks on the door and says, hey, what is your name? And Gypsy tells him his name, and he's like, okay, well, your mom's waiting for you. How did her mother track her at 6 a.m.? Does everybody have their phone open and willing to take a call from someone in the middle of the morning or night? Her mother asks her to get in the fan. Her mother tells her that she needs to take a pregnancy test. And I guess I'm going to leave off with this chapter, and then we're going to do a part 2 on this, because there is no way I can fit all this in just one video.